Comparison or difference between serial and parallel data transmission methods. We already know we have two ways to transmit data from one device to another. We have two methods to transmit data one device to another. One is called serial and one is called parallel. In serial, we send one bit at a time, one after the other, and in parallel we have several wires, so we can send several bits using the several wires at the same time. But which one is better, or both are better, or both have different applications? Let's understand this comparison between the serial and parallel data transmission. The first one in about the serial is this, that serial works well over long distances. So we should use serial transmission when we have a distance longer than 2 meters. Works well over short distances. Parallel transmission works well over short distances. If we use parallel transmission for long distances, we may face some problems. Serial obviously provides slower data transfer rate because we are using only one wire and bits are going one after the other than the parallel transmission method, in which we have a faster data transfer rate because we have multiple wires, 8, 16, 32 or 64. One channel wire is used, obviously one channel or a wire is used in serial transmission, whereas in parallel data transmission, we use several channels or wires to transmit data in a parallel way. Data arrives at destination fully synchronized. So, we have a problem of unsynchronized data, which is also called skewness. In serial, it is impossible for data to get skewed because data is being sent one bit at a time. Okay, so the previous bit does not reaches the destination before the first bit. Okay, bits arrive at the destination one after the other, no skewness. But in parallel, because we have multiple wires and channels, so there is a possibility that some of the bits may reach the destination before the other bits. So the destination port will be confused about the data and data may get out of synchronization. This is the main problem with the parallel transmission. This is why we don't use parallel transmission method over long distances. When we have a longer distance, we will have more skewness in the data. We can use it for shorter distances. In short distances, we don't face the issue of skewness. So that is why for longer distances we use serial, and for shorter distances we use parallel. Transmission between computer and printer is an example of serial transmission. Because printer is out of the computer now, and we have a cable connecting the printer with the computer, it is almost 2 meter long. So that is why we use serial method of transmission, because we don't want the data to get skewed. And transmission between internal circuits of computer is an example of parallel transmission. So in the internal circuits of the computer is an example of parallel transmission, because internally on the motherboard or between the motherboard and the hard disk we also want the speed, but because the distance is very small, few centimeters or few millimeters between these devices, so that is why it is safe for us to use parallel method of transmission. Less risk of external interference due to fewer wires. So sometimes the wires may change the data in other wires. In parallel transmission, the wires may change the data in the other wires because some signals in the wire are so strong they can convert a 1 traveling through the 1 wire into 0, or 0 to a 1. So external interference is another problem we face in parallel transmission. but not in serial transmission because serial has fewer wires or a one wire only. Not a preferred method when speed is important. Obviously, when you want a faster speed of transmission, like in the internal circuits of the computer, you are not going to use serial transmission. Preferred method when speed is important, obviously when you will use parallel transmission for speed, but you will not use serial transmission for speed, but you will use serial transmission to avoid the problem of skewness. Less expensive due to fewer hardware requirements. Obviously, serial transmission is using one wire only for transmission, so obviously it is going to take very little money to make the serial wires, serial transmission equipments, serial transmission hardwares, whereas parallel transmission would become expensive because you are going to use more metal, more material to make the parallel hardware.